Hi everyone, I am Zubair Hassan. Hope you all are fine. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic on historical research. So dear friends, let's move ahead on today's topic, historical research. Today we will discuss its concept of historical research, characteristics of historical research and historical data. What are historical data? And types of historical research. So dear friends, let's start with the concept of historical research. Historical research means we can say historical research studies the past events. Historical research studies the past events in an attempt to interpret the facts and explain the cause of that events. Historical research we can say studies the past events. Historical research studies the past events in an attempt to interpret the facts. Historical research studies the past events in an attempt to interpret the facts and to explain the cause of that events. To explain the cause of that events. How that events has been happened and their relevance and effect in the present situations. Historical research studies the past events in an attempt to explain the cause of that events and their relevance with the present situations and we can say historical research is used to compare the records of historical events. Historical research is used to compare the records of the historical events and the activities surrounding to them. Historical research is used to compare the records of historical events and the activities surrounding to them. Historical research, we can say, also helps to organize historical events sequentially. Historical research also helps to organize historical data, historical records, historical we can say events sequentially and to preserve the historical data So this was the concept of next. There are some important characteristics of historical data through which we can get more and clear understanding of the historical research. Historical research involves the analysis of data about the past events. Historical research involves the analysis of the data about past events. And it is the critical investigation of historical events. Historical research is the critical investigation of the historical events. We can say historical research is the critical investigation, analytical investigation of the historical events, historical facts. We can say historical research is to gain clear understanding of the past events. Clear understanding of the past events to study its impact on present situations or present events or future events. And we can say historical research is used for analyzing the past events. Historical research analyzes the past events and develops the present concepts and conclusions. Based on the past events, based on knowing and understanding the past events. And historical research analyzes the previous information. Historical research is used to analyze the previous information or events minutely. Historical research is employed for analyzing the previous information or events minutely and testing the validity of that information, whether that information was real or unreal. So these were the characteristics of historical research. And what are historical data? Or we can say, what is historical data? Historical data, if we talk about the data collection in historical research. In historical research, data is collected through primary sources and secondary sources. Data is collected through two sources, primary and secondary sources. What are these primary sources and secondary sources? I will discuss it ahead. And data evaluation. In historical data, there are two things which are very necessary and important to know: data collection and data evaluation. Data collection means in historical research, data is collected through primary sources and secondary sources. And data evaluation, after collecting the data is to be evaluated through like external criticism and internal criticism. These are the evaluation of data. These are the evaluation techniques of the data in historical research: external criticism and internal criticism. These are the in historical research. We evaluate the data after collection. After the collection of the data is to be evaluated through two techniques like external criticism and internal criticism. And now we will discuss primary source and secondary source. What are the primary sources and secondary sources of data? First, primary sources are eyewitness accounts of the data. Primary sources are the eyewitness accounts of the data. In primary sources of the data, the observer has direct physical relationship with the data. Means primary sources are eyewitness accounts of the data. The researcher in historical research collects data through his own hands, and he has direct physical relationship with the data which he is collecting for the research. And primary sources of the data are directly observed construct. Directly observed constructs, obviously, when the researcher or we can say when you are collecting data by your own hands, it can have direct research and it can be obviously have direct physical relationship, and we can say the primary source of the data are directly observed constructs. And by these examples like records, historical in historical data, the primary source like records, remains and lex, records like personal records, official records, or pictorial records. Personal records like we can say the diaries, the certificates, and autobiographies. The researcher goes directly on the spot and collects data. He can have personal record of the person, of the institution, and official record, official document of the institution, of the person, of the thing, of the event. And he will go directly by its own, he will collect the record of that event. And pictorial records. And he will have pictures of the event, of the happenings, of the past happenings. And remains and leaks like tools, clothing, buildings, furnitures, or weapons. He can collect, or we can say in the past centuries, in the past decades, clothing, buildings, furnitures, or weapons. These are the primary sources of data. And what are the secondary source? Secondary source of data is indirectly observed constructs. Secondary source of data are indirectly observed constructs. It's also known as data mining. It's also known as data mining. Means secondary source of data, when the researcher is going to collect the data through we can say the technique secondary sources, he will collect the data by involving some other conditions like textbook, periodical indexes, dissertations, research journals, historical reviews. A textbook has a vast knowledge or a vast, we can say, information about particular things, about a particular events. He will use the textbook and collect the vast information. And it is also known as data mining. Data mining means he is examining the large amount of information. He is examining the large amount of database. And it does not have direct physical relationship. When he is examining the large amount of data through some other conditions like textbook, pictorial indexes, and dissertations, research journals, obviously he would not have his direct relationship with while collecting data or with the data which he is collecting. And with observer with the event, subjects or conditions. He will collect the data through other conditions like textbook, periodical indexes, dissertations, research journals. Okay, these are the source of data, primary source and secondary source of data. And let's move ahead. And evaluation of data. Next is evaluation of data. Evaluation of data after the collection of the data is to be evaluated through different techniques like external criticism and internal criticism. In external criticism, the data is to be evaluated like through, we can say it is also known as lower order criticism. It's also known as lower order criticism. And internal criticism, it's also called higher order criticism. How it is called higher order criticism and why external criticism is called lower order criticism? Because external criticism checks the genuineness and authenticity of the data. It checks only the genuineness and authenticity of the data. Like genuineness, who has written the document, he will know through external criticism who has written the document, by which it is written. He will know only in external criticism when the document is written or who has written the document or by which it is written. And second one, authenticity. By authenticity, he can get the knowledge about the signature and handwriting of the person. He can know the signature, handwriting, corroborating, vocabulary usage of the document of that person in external criticism. But external criticism is not only he can know the external criticism, the data has been evaluated. There is also internal criticism by which the data can be evaluated more than external criticism, like through validity and credibility of the data sources. The researcher can get the validity of the data and credibility of the data. So far as internal criticism is also called as higher order criticism. Like the validity and credibility of the data, validity defines the validity. It checks the proper relevance of the document. And credibility checks the proper meaning of the document. So far it is called higher order criticism. It checks first the validity of the document, proper relevance of the document, which the researcher collected, and credibility. Credibility checks the proper meaning of the document, whether its meaning is real, whether its meaning is clearly understood or not. So these were the evaluations of the data, evaluation techniques of the data in historical research. And types of historical research. There are mainly some types of research in historical research I have mentioned here, like history of institutions, history of ideas, legal research, bibliographic research. History of institutions like the research about the past institutions like Nalanda, Taxila, and before used institutions for the sake of knowledge. And history of ideas. Any past ideas, any past history about the, we can say, Mughals, about Britishers, and legal research. These are the types of historical research and bibliographic research. I hope you got proper and clear understanding of the historical research. Dear friends, it was the overview about historical research. So it is types will be discussed in historical institutions. For example, what are the historical ideas, legal research, what are legal research and bibliographic researches. It will be discussed in broadest in another video lecture. So